Welcome to the Total Soccer Show and our review of Canada's CONCACAF Nations League victory over the USMNT. For Pochettino's side, it's been a disastrous week with two games that were fairly bleak. Against a superior Canada, once again, things were tired and laboured, so maybe it's the Canucks who should be annexing their southern neighbour. Right? My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, your friend, my friend, Taylor Rockwell. Hello, Taylor.
Hello. The only way that introduction could have been better is if you'd ended with politics and then moved it right along. I would also like to give credit, while I'm giving credit, to Graham Ruthven, who referred to this performance off-air as feckless. I wanted to look that up to make sure that that was correct. Aimless, careless, feeble, ineffective, and ineffectual. All synonyms for feckless.
Well, that's my notes. I've got nothing.
Graham, well done. You nailed it. Should we stop this record now? I feel like we've done enough.
Yeah, I think we've done our job here. That entirely sums up what we've just watched, not just last night, but on Thursday night as well. Great stuff, guys. Great stuff. What we really wanted, Ryan, was a rhyme to lead us into this entirely uplifting podcast, I'm sure it will be.
There was a second verse that referenced hockey and stuff like that, but I just cut it there, Graham, frankly. I felt like we'd had enough rhyming at that point. By the way, feckless is a great word. A dangerous one to say in Ireland and with an Irish accent, given how they say a certain word. Joe Larry's also here. Hello, Joe.
Hey, fellas. Good to see you all. This will be more fun, I think, collectively than our experiences watching that USA-Canada game. Although, we can't leave just yet because I have a full 90-minute breakdown of Jesse Marsch's tunnel cam. So I think we should go frame by frame on that, actually. And then we can do, another 90 on Diego Luna, and then we can call it a day.
It was shades of Spinal Tap when they get lost trying to find their way from the dressing room to the stage, of him just walking in loops around the bowels of SoFi Stadium. I hope he's still there. That's what legend says. He's still walking around ranting about a penalty that shouldn't have been a penalty.
Well, and it's fascinating because to do the frame by frame, he starts out at like sort of a brisk walk, right? It doesn't seem like he's in full jog mode. And then later on, when they cut back to him, I was watching on TDN, so I don't know what the CBS folks got, but on TDN, then they cut back to him later, and he is, at that point, jogging, borderline actual full-on running, which, Ryan, I know you'll appreciate and relate to. And it makes me think maybe he changed directions. Maybe he's going somewhere else. Maybe he's trying to ditch the CONCACAF, officer that's sort of escorting him wherever he's going. I have so many questions, and I think we're going to break it all down today.
I think we should, man, because it's not unlike I have to reference Survivor once a week. It's the rule. It's not unlike when they're still like early on in filming and they're not quite used to 14 cameras being pointed at them for every conversation. And that CONCACAF official is definitely side-eyeing the camera like, Jesse, they're right there. They are picking up what you are saying. Totally. They are right there. I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to stare straight ahead. I'm going to look at the camera again, and I'm going to stare straight ahead. Jesse's still angry. Let's go for a jog and see how this tones things down.
Do we think we would improve things if we had a CONCACAF jailer who led you to the stadium prison?
Don't give Infantino ideas.
What about the big mascot? Valor, or whatever it's called, the big bird mascot that CONCACAF recently introduced. That could be the jailer. Yeah,
he's got 41 in his name, Graham. He's very clever.
So I've heard. I thought we were going to get a breakdown of Will Smith. His set.
Well, great.
Oh, Ryan's got it.
You've stolen right from my intro here because. I feel like this was obviously not great for US soccer, but we did get, leading into the final, which Mexico won 2-1 against Panama, of course, after a penalty from a hilariously needless handball. We can get to that later. But Will Smith doing a medley of Getting Jiggy With It, Men in Black, and Wild Wild West.
Classic.
So, in a way, in the most important way, America did win.
That was the best performance by an American in that stadium all week. Yeah. So, I had a good time watching it.
It also got me thinking, okay, you can get Kendrick for the Super Bowl. Is the best we can do for CONCACAF songs from 30 years ago?
Actually,
yes.
As far as this is to that as this is to that, Kendrick to the Super Bowl is not even high enough. He's not even enough better as Will Smith to CONCACAF. Will Smith for CONCACAF, for the Nations League semifinals and final, is an incredible get. It should be someone that we've never heard of. If Kendrick is setting the standard at the Super Bowl, which is a huge get, obviously, Will Smith is a really famous person, and the CONCACAF Nations League Final Four is not a really famous competition.
How else is he going to rescue his reputation? CONCACAF is the only possible route that you can do that through. Yeah.
Wow, reputation washing in front of our very eyes.
I got jiggy with it. That's all I'm saying.
You did. You are a galaxy adventurer, wickedy wild wild. Well done to you, Graham Ruthven.
The U.S. was bad, which made me sad. Others were mad. The presence of Will Smith did not make me glad. Poch was supposed to be the new dad, but a bald fraud with hair is what we've so far had. There we go. That's my rhyming introduction.
Nice. That was good.
It's all on Poch. None of it is on the players or their individual performances. It's clearly just the manager. That's the problem. Berhalter back in?
Did he
Miola
forget his
in?
lemons?
Somebody.
What happened to the lemons? Have they been stopped at the border?
Should we talk about the game?
No.
Yeah, let's do that, Joe.
We're
Let's do that.
procrastinating.
Okay, yeah, we'll get to it, Joe. Why don't we do that? Of course, it was Canada 2, the US 1. US finishing rock bottom of the CONCACAF Nations League after winning the first 3 editions, losing to Canada in the ice hockey as well, etc. and so on. 15 months out from hosting a World Cup, Poch has lost his first 2 competitive games. All right, let's get into it. Tani Oluise of Minnesota United with his first international goal for the opener. Big Pat Aguimang with the equaliser, despite Tony Viola several times on the call saying it was Timothy Weah. Then Jonathan David with the winner just before the hour in this one. And as noted, Jesse Marsch sent off and doing his WWE walking down corridors thing.
Oh man, that is what it was.
Yeah, he was of course incensed by that Jonathan David slipping over incident, which we can get to as well. Low attendance at this one once again, embarrassingly empty, I would say. Certainly at the start, probably throughout as well. Taylor, I feel like I've set the depressing stage. Would you like to give your opening gambit on your thoughts on this whole exercise?
Yeah. An incredibly frustrating game, an incredibly frustrating international break for the United States, and really a worrying one at that, for reasons you've already outlined, given the timeline to the 2026 World Cup, and how ill-prepared the United States looks for it, and how ill-prepared they look for the fight that will inevitably have to happen if you want to get out of your group or do well in your group at all. And that was the thing that I was most struck by on the rewatch of this game, because yes, I did rewatch it, and it was as fun, if not more fun, than it was the first time. Under Berhalter, especially with like friendly windows, the U.S. would maybe look a little bit sluggish in one game, and then we would see a response in the next. It wasn't always the most emphatic response. It wasn't always the most emphatic result. But there would sometimes be that recalibration, that adjustment that needed to happen. And so under Pochettino, I was hoping, number one, we wouldn't need a recalibration from one game to the next. But if we got one, I thought it would be stirring and rousing and high energy and a lot more pressing and a lot more work. And we did not get that. It was much more of the same for the United States. Better at times in possession, better at times in the attack, though as the game went on, it felt increasingly likely that they weren't going to get an equalizer. But on the defensive side, it just felt so much like the U.S. expected Canada to roll over, did not expect Canada to really be at the races or cause problems, and that's evidenced by both of the goals the U.S. conceded, but numerous opportunities they gave up, is how often players weren't closed down. There was like maybe an extra couple yards for a Canadian player to operate, how oftentimes they had an easy outlet, even at times an attacking outlet, and the U.S. just did not get numbers over, did not cause problems for them, did not make their lives difficult, and that was a theme throughout both of these games.
Yeah, I thought the biggest failure, and there were a lot of failures from this match and over the 2 games, but from this match I thought the biggest failure was the US defending inside their own box. The first goal is kind of unbelievable. I don't know if Weah is sort of unaware of his bearings or doesn't know how close to goal he is in that moment, but Ahmed has so much time to... Yeah, it's ridiculous. He is like a full, 3 yards off the player, 10 yards out from goal inside the box, and Ahmed just has so much time and space to pick out a pass about 8 yards out from goal.
Sorry to interject. I thought for sure there must be extenuating circumstances, and when I went back and rewatched, not only does he not close down Tim Weah, he takes way too long to even recognize, oh, that guy's wide open. And when he does recognize it, he jogs over and doesn't close down, doesn't apply pressure. It's so lackadaisical. It is so... Somebody else will handle it. It's Canada. They're probably not going to score. I don't know how else to explain it, because any other time you have an opposition player running into the box unmarked and you yourself are ball watching and not marking, you would assume there would be some level of effort to close that player down and then close them down further. And there was neither of those things from Tim Weah.
Yeah, and there's 6 Canadian players inside the box for that moment. So it just felt very easy. In the second goal, McKenzie gets done by the chop from Jonathan David. CCV's initial positioning is weird. That maybe denies him a step to make a block, a desperation block in that moment. But I just continually felt like it was so easy for Canada to get into good value positions inside the final third. And you compare that to Canada, who got bodies around American attackers, like for the not the Mike White chance, not the writer of White Lotus, the Brian White chance right at the end, where the ball's put in the box. Maybe he could control it a little bit better, but he's got 4 Canadian players around him, and so I felt like that was a big difference between the 2 teams.
Joe, going into this game, did we feel any more bullish? Maybe looking at the starting 11, we had CCV starting, we had Diego Luna starting in this one. Tyler Adams, of course, in there. Patrick Agumang, big Pat up top. Did we feel any more bullish at the start of this game than we might have a few days ago?
For me, only really intrigued to see Diego Luna. I don't think any of the other swaps in the lineup from Pochettino made a huge difference to my expectations for this game, sort of. But Luna was one of the players that we were clamoring to see in that loss to Panama, and it seemed odd that we didn't get to see a real chance creator type in that game. And so it was good to see Pochettino kind of follow up on what he said, that Diego Luna and Gio Reyna are going to get chances to play on Sunday. And I thought Diego Luna lived up to the hype and maybe even exceeded the hype in this game. He looked like the adult on the field for the United States in a way that the actual adults, the experienced veterans of this team, really did not. So that had me excited. This whole game was weird, right? Because we're frankly not used to, no one is used to the U.S. men's national team playing in third place games. And so I'm having trouble trying to figure out exactly how depressed to be after this match, because Pochettino was not, this was not the U.S.'s best lineup. And Pochettino's subs were not his best subs, right? It was very clear that Pochettino cared less about winning this game and more about trying to learn things about this team. I think this group of players absolutely could have done more to go out there and win this game. This was not a good performance by and large from the United States. I'm a little less down on some of the defensive stuff than you guys are, while also conceding that there were real errors in this game. But the U.S. didn't allow a lot of super clear-cut chances, but they also didn't create chances, and they also didn't really move the ball into dangerous spaces, period. The possession play continues to be a problem for this team, but really, this whole game just felt weird. And my excitement, Ryan, to go back to the way you led me in, was always sort of muted for this game because it's a third place game for a U.S. team that's not in a very good moment right now. And Pochettino, you could tell with the lineup, wasn't really going for this game.
So, Joe, just to follow up there, if the object was to learn about this team rather than to win, was that mission accomplished?
I mean, we'd certainly learned things about this team. So in a certain way, yes, I don't think Pochettino and his staff would have learned maybe all the things that they'd hoped to learn. Luna is a talking point that we're going to come back to later, I'm sure, but was very, very good. That assist, everything about that build-up sequence for the United States, and Diego Luna keyed almost all of it. Tim Weah, very good, I think, on the ball for stretches of this game. He was one of the brighter spots in possession, in my view. That was a great sequence. So seeing Diego Luna impact games against a good Canada team. This Canada team has real quality. There's real talent in this team, even after Alphonso Davies goes off early in this game with a little knock. Those are all true. Like, Jesse Marsch has his team playing some solid ball. So getting to see Luna thrive in those circumstances I liked. And other than that, we see Tyler Adams once again after this game sort of call out some of his teammates in regards to their effort, talking about how there needs to be a little bit more from this team, and there needs to be a little bit more aggression from this team. That was a real legitimate gripe after the Panama game. It's a real legitimate gripe yet again in this game. I think we're learning that continues to be a problem for this team.
Joe, one question of clarification. I think I'm with you, and I think that was going to be my opening thought, was like, it's a third-place game. Historically, the U.S. has lost those, not performed particularly well. They've been an opportunity to play new players in different positions and see what happens. It just, at the same time, with the abbreviated timeline to hosting a World Cup and
this
not
is all they've got.
Qualifying. Well, I think, I guess what my question would be then is that how we should see every game from now until the World Cup? Is this basically all rehearsal for the World Cup? So I've seen some people say, the Gold Cup, though, that's the tournament this summer. That's where we have to see a response from the U.S. Do we have to see a response from the U.S., or could we see that as more experimentation, more trying things and see what happens in advance of the World Cup?
I think Pochettino needs to be putting out, by and large, the players that he thinks are going to impact the United States at the World Cup, right? I think we need to see those guys playing together. And if folks want to feel at all comfortable about the U.S. heading into 26, the tournament, not the year, I suppose, but maybe both, then those players need to start playing some good ball. The reality is there are so few opportunities, right? There's the pre-Gold Cup friendlies, then you've got the Gold Cup, right? Those are the next sets of games for the United States. Pochettino has talked multiple times now about how certain U.S. players are not going to be available for that tournament because they're going to be with their clubs for the Club World Cup this summer. Gio Reyna, Tim Weah, I think Weston McKennie, right? Dortmund and Juventus are both in the Club World Cup, if memory serves. Those are three key players, or at least two. Who knows where Gio Reyna stands in this team, right? Those are key players for the U.S. that it doesn't sound like they're going to have first priority to. They won't have first priority to this summer. So I think we need to see the best U.S. group possible. and the one that's going to be on the field to open the World Cup at SoFi Stadium in 2026. That's the group that we need to see, and that group needs to gain chemistry with maybe some fringe sort of trialists and depth options getting a cameo or two along the way.
Yeah, and what you just said about the Gold Cup, Joe, and some players being missing due to Club World Cup duties, surely places more importance on this third place game, which I accept as a third place game. We don't usually talk about third place games, right? But the fact, or even watch them, but the fact that we are doing that today shows that this wasn't. I watched them, yeah. It shows that this isn't your ordinary third place game, right? And it was also a third place game for Canada. They wanted to win the Nations League. They wanted to be in the final, certainly. And they made a lot more of it than the US did. So, I don't know. I feel like I accept what you're saying, Joe. I'm not panicking on the basis of a third place game. But equally, watching the performance and the body language and I guess, like, frankly, the effort level of some of these players, the only one that seemed to grasp that this wasn't actually a Nations League third place game. This is for the World Cup. This is for you earning your place in that tournament, was Diego Luna, who was barreling around the pitch and on and off the ball. I thought gave the US another dimension. I thought he was good in this game. He's basically the only positive. Him and Tyler Adams are the only positives coming out of this camp. He seemed to be the only one who grasped that situation.
Yep, because I think at the end of the day, Graham, you summarized it well. I think Canada wanted to be there. I think there was certainly some animosity from Jesse Marsch's perspective, but I think that national team wants to beat the United States, wants to show that they belong in that conversation as kind of like the top-tier echelon of CONCACAF. And the U.S., by contrast, looked annoyed at times to be there. They looked like a team that was like, wow, you guys are really going for this, huh? Which used to be the U.S.'s bread and butter. That used to be the brand, was work rate and intensity, and no matter what, we're going to like work hard for our teammates and work hard for each other and fight for every single inch. I am not sure that needs to be the identity of the United States at this point, because I think they want to be more of a possession team who find ways to beat you that isn't just based on physicality and effort, especially as I think other national teams have caught up to the intensity of training and the intensity of the work rate. So I understand where the U.S. is coming from, but at the same time, when your backs are against the wall, when it's clear that this is going to be a scrap and you have to kind of battle for every inch, I don't think that is the mentality of this team, and I think that is a huge problem.
Yeah, and I think some of that does come from Pochettino. I want to be clear. I was simply saying that I wasn't that excited for this game because it's a third-place game, and the Panama game was so bleak. And honestly, it didn't seem like Pochettino really was either. I'm not trying to read into his sideline demeanor. I'll leave that to Waki. He'll do it better than me. Like, I'm simply trying to point out that with the U.S. lineup and with the subs that Pochettino put on the field, and the one that really sticks out to me is Brian White, right? I was messaging a bit back and forth with Jerry Hinnon, who does some stuff for us at Backheeled, and we were talking about the kind of most surprising lineup selection from Pochettino in this window. And my first thought was no Luna, no Gio against Panama, right? That felt, or no substitutions for those guys against Panama. And Jerry's point was maybe it's the Brian White sub, because Brian White is not going to be at the World Cup in 2026. Why is Brian White on the field to close out this game? I have nothing against Brian White. I can see a world in which he's earned a minute in a competitive game for the United States.
Yeah.
But really, Lo, why is Brian White on the field for the United States? What does that tell us? What does that help us learn about what's going on here for the U.S.? So it really just seems to me, to go all the way back, and sorry if I belabor this point, it really just seems to me like Pochettino wasn't bothered about this game. And with limited matches, it's not great. It's not great.
Yeah, I think that Brian White sub, Joe, is just essentially, I think with that substitution, every outfield player gets some minutes besides Brian Gutierrez, who is out of that squad due to an injury for the second game. So this was an exercise to learn about his players, and so I think late in the game he's thinking, might as well, just so that I've got some evidence. But yeah, it's a fair point.
It's like Mourinho when he brings on youngsters when they're losing 5-0 to then be like, see how many youngsters I've given opportunities to? I'm a great manager. That makes it better.
Yeah. Poch's point is, why I need some money spent on a centre forward in the transfer window.
Yes.
Someone, that CONCACAF suit that escorted Jesse Marsch away, whispers something in his ear. What?
All right, we need to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to dig a bit more into some of the individual performances. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our review of Canada's win over the USMNT. Some of the points, Taylor, we were making before the break here about players wanting to be there, I think it seemed quite critical for me. I think a lot of this week has been a bit embarrassing for the program, but what I was really shocked by was, maybe save for Diego Luna, just that whole sense that the players didn't really want to be there. Certainly the fans didn't want to be there because they didn't show up. So we can say that much, or they didn't buy the tickets. But the players also didn't. I just didn't feel they wanted to be a part of this whole exercise this whole week. It felt like maybe it was even a distraction for them, arguably. So with that in mind, Taylor, in the last time we spoke about this team for the Panama defeat, I asked you whether there'd been, progression, regression, or stasis. I would argue that given the attitude of these players, would we have been better off not even having these games? And I don't mean that in a sort of glib way.
Everyone has a holiday.
Well, have they? I don't know, because I don't feel like they've got much progression from it, because I don't even know if they wanted to actually be on the field.
Instead of going to the Gold Cup, guys, we're just going to have a cruise and hope that builds some chemistry.
Yeah.
Because the last Nations League camp didn't go so well.
I have a feeling locking this team into a floating prison isn't the way to bring about camaraderie and kumbaya. Just saying. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of, to some extent, sympathy for some of these players, because we've talked about this before. When you are coming from playing in the Champions League, playing in a top flight in Europe, to coming to play in front of 300 people, like as very much the undercard to Mexico, I can see how you would be like, why are we doing this? I think there were teams in the past where it was putting on that shirt was the most important thing you were going to do in your career, putting on the U.S. shirt, that is. And so it was then like everything you were going to play for, everything you were going to fight for. And I like to believe that is still the case, but I wonder if when you then go home and play in front of 80,000 supporters every single weekend, if some of that shine wears off. And that is partially how I explain this result, or this lack of result in these two games. It just felt ineffective. It felt uneven as well, where we would see moments from the United States where it was like, oh, see, look, they can move the ball quickly. They can be effective 1v1. They can kind of move the ball quickly and find opportunities, and then they can spring some surprises. But for every one of those, there were large chunks of inability to penetrate, either on the dribble or with the pass, inability to really create much of anything, and inability to make a difference on an individual work rate level. A very telling number to me is the fact that the U.S. completes 451 passes to Canada's 302. Not fully surprising. However, in the opposition half, the U.S. completes 100 passes, Canada completes 97. So 3 more for the United States in Canada's half than Canada had, despite having 150 or so more passes. That, to me, says the U.S. possessing the ball in their own half, not really sure what to do with it, or trying to play out, and not really succeeding in that front either, because Canada's press was so much more complete and so much more effective, and at times riskier, but I think with that risk came a bit more reward. So I think Canada certainly learned a lot from this window. I think Mexico probably did too. I think Panama did too. For the United States, I think I came away with even fewer answers than I already had, aside from I continue to want Diego Luna in this team. Maybe not on the left, but I want Diego Luna in this team.
Yeah, maybe we can pause there if we're doing some more individual performance stuff. I think there are lots of takeaways about individuals, frankly, from this window. It's super useful exercise overall if you're Pochettino and his coaching staff, to go back to your question, Ryan. Just not the outcome that you wanted. As far as Diego Luna goes, he starts on the left in this game, right? In what is essentially a 4-2-3-1 for the United States as they try to build through Canada's 4-2-2-2, 4-4-2 press, whatever you want to call it. Luna starts as that left winger, and then 20, 30 minutes into this game, he and Tim Weah swap sides. So Weah was on the right side, and they swap. And then at that point, when Diego Luna's on the right, he sort of becomes the Diego Luna that we know, even though he does play kind of inside left for RSL, in that he goes and floats and finds the game. And that's where the U.S.'s goal sequence comes from, is Diego Luna. Starting on the right, he sort of facilitates play to move it over to the left, and he follows up the ball and goes and drifts left to provide an overload on that side. And Tim Weah, to his credit, plays a lovely ball into the box for Diego Luna, who exploits that space on the left side of the box so well. He's done that for RSL numerous times. He did it in this game numerous times. There's another moment in the 94th minute of this match where he makes a very similar run. He slips into the box, he gets on the ball, and he draws in Cornelius so well. He waits and waits, and is just, the Spanish talk about la pausa, right? Like this sort of sense they have of not being in a rush, because waiting can draw someone to you. Then you can lay the ball off into the space they just vacated. Luna's got that in spades, right? He takes the ball, he waits for the defender to run to him, he then lays it off. Very simple pass, but very, very well executed from Luna to find Patrick Agyemang. And it's not the best of finishes, but it beats St. Clair, and the U.S. are level. Luna was just so impactful in this game. He looks strong. And Graham, I think you used the verb barrels around the field earlier. That describes Luna, who is kind of a barrel-chested dude. He's He's a big dude for being a small dude in a very weird way. And he's got that strength in the low center of gravity. In the 6th minute of this game, he's back to goal. He draws a foul playing on that left side, just showing real strength against a really aggressive Canada team. Luna looked awesome. Luna looked like he could start in a key game for the U.S. tomorrow, and nobody would bat an eye at it. And Luna would be ready for that kind of moment. I thought Luna, especially in contrast to Christian Pulisic, who I want to do a quick beat on, was really good in this game. Pulisic, for his part, this was 2 basically anonymous games in a row from him where he didn't look especially engaged. He certainly wasn't effective playing in that more central role. I think Pochettino wanted this U.S. team to get into that 3-2-5 attacking look higher up the field, but then abandoned that pretty quickly when Luna swaps over to the other side and Weah and Arfston and then are both on the left. And they changed the look, and so Pulisic ends up playing basically as a 10 and wasn't effective. Yet again, was not effective on the ball, tried to dribble through people, and was consistently unsuccessful at doing that. I don't know if anybody clocked the 31st minute moment for him where he gets on the ball in that central area and just dribbles right into traffic and tries to beat 6 people, Gio Reyna style, against Mexico, and turns the ball over. And it's just a nothing play. And there were so many of those moments where Pulisic looked almost incapable of changing the game from that number 10 spot. I think if we learn something, it's that Pulisic is probably not fit for that spot in this kind of game. Honestly, I think swapping Luna and Pulisic would be a really interesting experiment for the next match.
Yeah, Joe, this is from Jeff Carlisle on Blue Sky last night. Christian Pulisic had 20 touches of the ball in 69 minutes of play, 0 touches in the box, and completed just 7 of his 12 passes. So I think that really illustrates how he struggled to have any sort of impact on this match.
He had 20 touches the whole game?
That's
in his 69
what Jeff
minutes.
says, in 69 minutes before
that doesn't even surprise me. I don't have that many Pulisic notes in this game. I have a note in the 44th minute where the ball is coming down the right side and Pulisic is the accent runner in the box, and he just doesn't make a run. He just waits and is content to be marked, and there's no one else making that run. There was some inexcusable stuff, frankly, from Christian Pulisic in this game. I really do think a takeaway that I have from this window is when you're playing against a team like Canada, who are going to be a bit more aggressive and aren't going to allow you to get into that 3-2-5 controlled possession shape that we talk about all the time. When you're playing a team like that, Pulisic, I just do not think is effective playing underneath a number 9 in a game where he has to go find the space, get on the ball in the half turn, and drive it forward and make a good decision on the ball. He's better out wide, where the decisions are simplified, and he can just put his shoulder down and run at a dude. In the middle, it's not that simple. And Pulisic, we've known this for years. Pulisic is just not that kind of number 10. When he's playing that role, effectively, it's for a team that sits a little bit deeper, and he can go and attack and do his transition stuff from the number 10 role. I think that's a takeaway from this window, is that Pulisic in this kind of game, and the U.S. will have more of these kinds of games next summer, it is that he is not optimal in that inside role.
It was notable to me how many different little quotes I heard about Pulisic in this camp about how we want to get him the ball, he's the guy we want on the ball, he's the guy who's going to create, he's the guy we look to. And I understand that. At the same time, is Pulisic Michael Jordan? Is Pulisic LeBron? Are we clearing out to let them cook?
LeBron James of soccer.
I just don't think there's any opposition defense short of I don't know, very bad Serie A teams that are looking at Christian Pulisic and quaking in their boots. He's a very good player, but he is not that next level difference maker that I feel like sometimes he is made out to be. I think he's very comfortable out wide, driving at defenders, trying to create something, but being the kind of cerebral presence through the middle, I'm not sure is where he is going to look his best or be as effective. And that was another kind of worrying thing to me coming out of this camp, was how much it seemed to be about Christian Pulisic, and there's the Christian Pulisic doc, and he's this guy, and he's this figure, and he's so good for Milan. And at the same time, I'm just not sure he is at that level that maybe we want him to be. And so when you then put him in a position where he has to play like it, I'm not sure he can.
Relative to the rest of the team, though, right, he is the most reliable difference maker for this side. And so if you're an opposition team, he's probably the player that you have some form of plan for. That was one of my big takeaways coming out of these 2 games. Go on, Taylor.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It's just sort of if your car won't start because you have bad spark plugs, does it matter if you have the most reliable of the bad spark plugs? I think you've got to find other ways to get around that issue.
That was the point I was precisely going to make there, is if other teams have got an effective plan to stop Christian Pulisic playing well, or if he's just not playing well in a game individually, you need to have something else. And so I feel like we've come out of these two games with this idea that the US don't have any attacking variety. What are their various plans to hurt teams besides just giving Christian Pulisic the ball and hoping that he does something? I don't see anything there.
Or Tim Weah. We can give Tim Weah the ball and watch him drive at people.
I mean, at least he did do something in this game. He creates the goal, but
I just mean that seems to be plan A and plan B, and plan C is own goal, I guess. Olympico from a corner. Let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen indeed. Taylor, besides maybe Diego Luna, any positive performance points from any other play you'd like to spotlight?
It's a tough one. I think Graham said it already. Maybe Joe did as well. I thought Tyler Adams over the course of the two games showed the effort and intensity, and I think at times was trying to lead by example, especially lead the press by example. There's numerous times in the first half when he closes somebody down, and you can see him look around, gesturing for everybody to kind of respond with a similar level of effort and energy. And I think Adams did cover a ton of ground. Both defensively, but then also off the ball, running, trying to get into spots where he could then help facilitate possession, popping up on the left wing at times, especially early in the build. So I feel like Adams did enough to stay in the good books, but that might be where the list ends.
Yeah, I think it's a short list. I would put Adams on that list. I don't think there's anyone else in the pool that can do what he does in this team. I'm going to make a very quick Weston McKennie point and then turn it back to Tyler Adams. I definitely don't come out of this window feeling great about Weston McKennie's role in this team. In the past, I've spoken about finding him quite a confusing player, and this performance against Canada, in particular, is what I mean by that. Because I don't really know what he was meant to offer in this team. He wasn't in there as a rhythm builder. We didn't see any box crashing. He wasn't a deep-lying playmaker going forward. 3 of his 49 passes in this game were into the final third. For context, Coney for Canada had 22 passes in the entire game. 6 of them were into the final third. So he had double the final third passes of Weston McKennie. And so one of my big takeaways from the camp is about the midfield. I think you put Tyler Adams at the base, and then everything else is up for grabs. Everything else is about building a functioning unit rather than just putting names on a sheet and hoping for the best. Because I think you have to look after the balance of that midfield, and if that means sitting Weston or sitting Musa or Reina, Poch already seems to be in the habit of sitting Gio Reyna. Like you have to do that because that unit has to be stronger, and Adams is the only one that I put into that midfield unit and think you build around him. Everything else I feel is very, very fluid at this point.
Graham, one thing to really highlight what you're talking about with McKennie and why I think it is Adams and then whomever justifies their inclusion, because in the lead up to the goal, so it's the 27th minute is when Canada go up 1-0. What I was trying to figure out is that in the build up for Canada, they have numerous open players, including Alistair Johnson on the overlap, and it is a 4v3 in Canada's favor. And I was trying to figure out, well, surely everybody is back from the United States. Why is there this mismatch? Actually, it's 7v7, which is maybe a testament to Canada committing numbers. But the biggest presence that's missing is Weston McKennie, who went, after the U.S. went direct and it went all the way back to the goalie, he went and decided to go press on his own and tried to apply pressure and was immediately bypassed by a pass. And then he jogs back the entire length of the pitch, and this is after Canada counter, after the initial ball in is partially cleared by CCV after Joe Scally did good 1v1. Canada reestablished possession, then they go again, and then there's the gap that Tim Weah isn't able to cover. Weston McKennie only appears on screen at the very end when the ball is put in the net because he is clearly jogging the whole way back, and he is a huge reason why there is this mismatch through the middle and out wide for Canada, and that lack of effort is a thing that, again, makes me feel like you don't have that, like, I've got to prove my spot. If this is a January camp, I think there are players in there who are running all the way forward and then sprinting 100 yards back because they know that's the effort that's going to be required if I want to stay in this conversation. Not really seeing that level of effort from certain players in this team. Weston McKennie is one of them.
Yeah, I agree with that take. And I agree, Graham, with what you're talking about of Tyler Adams seems pretty well locked in to this Pochettino team. It was most of the same Tyler Adams we've seen for a long time. I thought he was good against Panama. I thought he was not so good on the ball in this game. That's the Tyler Adams experience, right? And frankly, I think we got the Weston McKennie experience in this window too. This is the kind of back-to-back performance from Weston McKennie that has Juventus giving his locker away to somebody else, right, and taking his parking spot. And the thing with Weston McKennie is he always works a way back into your heart. I hear what you're saying on Weston McKennie. This is like a very much a part of the normal up and down McKennie way, right? So I am not all that worried about McKennie. I'm not trying to give him a free pass, but I guess I'm just so hardened to this pattern at this point. And I also look around the rest of the midfield pool. who else is going to take that spot? Is Yunus Musa going to take that spot? Is Tanner Tessman going to take that spot? I know the point you're talking about.
I don't know what his spot is. Like, so it's more. It's not so much about Wes McKennie, the player. I've liked a lot of what McKennie's done for Juventus this season. We've talked about it at length. It's more about identifying what is he meant to be doing in that role. And if someone else, once they nail that down, if someone else can do those things better, then Wes McKennie's reputation shouldn't be the thing that keeps him in the team. That's basically the point I'm making.
Fair enough. I guess I'm just skeptical that there is anybody in the pool that's like realistically going to challenge Weston McKennie at almost anything in the next 16 months. I don't know. Maybe, and I could be totally wrong, but that's just my sense.
I think that's fair, Joe. I think it's just to maybe bridge things further. I think for me, an aspect of McKennie's game that I've always appreciated and enjoyed, and why I've been willing to overlook certain things like maybe a questionable first touch, is the effort and intensity. He is always going to be the first to kind of wade in when there is like any sort of scrap. He is going to get stuck in. He is going to put in a physical challenge. He is going to kind of embody hard work, at least in my mind. But in these two games, we have not seen that. And this game in particular against Canada, just that kind of lack of next level effort, especially on the defensive side, is where I then think, well, if you're not going to run that hard or work that hard, that's what kind of used to endear me to you, and now I see the flaws as maybe larger than I did before. Maybe that is the negativity of the moment. Maybe that fades a little bit. Joe, you are probably right that McKennie will somehow find his way into the good graces, and by somehow I mean almost immediately, probably by doing or saying something silly. But in the meantime, I share Graham's concern that, like, if we start to feel like we don't know what certain players are doing that makes them their involvement in the team written in ink or written in very bold pencil, I get increasingly nervous about not understanding the identity or approach of the team as a whole.
Yeah. Joe, you said the Weston McKennie Experience. That does sound like a band that could have played at Woodstock back in the day. I'm just going to say that.
Very much so.
It sounds like
a band name that Chris Pratt's character would have come up with in Parks and Rec. Very much so.
Yeah, Mouse Rat tribute. I like it. Very good. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to look at our conclusions from this here transfer window and transfer window, international window. I wish it was a transfer window, and how we look forward. Back shortly. Total Soccer Show. Welcome back. Joe, a few more individual performances to touch on from this game. Any good ones or no?
No, I think I'm good. I actually thought Gio Reyna looked pretty good off the bench, but nobody wants to hear me talk about Gio Reyna anymore, and I'm kind of tired of it myself.
I do. What did you like?
I liked his some of his play down the right side where he was going and combining fairly well, and I think he plays Ajiman through and gets a little frustrated that Ajiman holds his run instead of going and making that run, and they're not on the same page. It just seems so clear to me that Reyna, if everything is equal, fits better as the 10, and Pulisic maybe fits better a little bit wider. And we saw Reyna in the 10, and I thought he conducted play better than Pulisic. But I don't. Like I said, I'm running out of juice at that time.
There were a couple of good set pieces, like the Luna, the Dean Sinclair save from Luna comes from this pretty incredible sort of scooped free kick into the box.
Yeah,
I like that.
There was some good stuff.
Graham, did you like that Reyna wasn't on the pitch 2 minutes earlier because Christian Pulisic said no? Didn't know that you could just reject a substitution. Yeah, that's news.
That was interesting. I don't know whether to read too much into that. Maybe that's just the sort of thing that a frustrated player does, but Poch looked a little bewildered by it.
You have to hit a shot on frame at that point, right? You can't be like, no, I'm taking this free kick. I'm taking this set piece. This is going to be the moment. And then I'm going to meekly lob it into the 18 and hope that somebody wins the header and then be substituted. I'm not sure that really necessitated him staying on the pitch.
It's classic rec league behavior, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah. It really, really is.
Including the delivery on the subsequent free kick.
Yeah.
The players I wanted to spotlight really quickly were the fullbacks who started in this game. Joe Scally on the right, Max Arfsten on the left. I don't think I'm going to get a lot of opposition here. Max Arfsten doesn't look up to this level. I thought he had a really poor game, and that kind of follows where he was in the January camp. I think he's a fun player. Left back is not a role that he plays for his club. The most recent match for the Columbus Crew, he was playing as a right winger in a front three. He does play as a left wing back by and large for the Crew, but it just doesn't seem ready for this kind of game.
What was it, Joe?
I thought almost every single touch on the ball was very sloppy from him. I don't think he connected passes well, and I don't think he defended especially well either.
That was the thing in January. I thought he was very tentative in possession and just his touch was off.
Who wasn't sloppy on the ball, Joe?
Right. No, that's fair enough. But I think we're building a case that Max Arson's probably not going to play important minutes for the United States next year. The other option, or the other fullback in this game, Joe Scally, I thought was also incredibly poor. And was a reminder that in a game like this where you need some capable distribution out of the back, where you could really benefit from someone who can drop a shoulder and break a line on the dribble and break Canada's press on the dribble, Joe Scally does not give you those things. He is a very capable player when he is hanging deep as a right back in a team that has a ball-dominant approach in the attacking half, where his burden is really defend, be sharp in your rest defense positioning, be sharp in defending in transition, and like keep the ball moving against a team that's not really pressing you. Joe Scally was a 0 in this game, maybe even less than a 0. He just gave the U.S. absolutely nothing, and that's the Joe Scally story in games like this, and is a real reminder that the U.S. missed Sergiño Dest and they missed Jedi Robinson across those two spots in this March window.
Well, Joe, that's probably a key point to have a positive outlook looking forward, isn't it? This
Sure.
team was playing with one hand behind its back.
Yeah,
With
totally.
Destin Robinson back, maybe with some more quality striker options available. This is a very different picture, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. It's a double-edged sword, though, because we can do the same thing for Canada, where they lose Alphonso Davies very early in this game, and Davies clearly was not even all the way there, I think, before he comes off the field. And Canada still managed
Yeah,
mostly
I think that's
okay,
a really,
you know?
I think that's a really telling moment as well, where they lose their best player, someone that is so important to how they play. It's early in the game, but they make a few adjustments, and lo and behold, Alistair Johnson has a great game. And you contrast that to how the US has adapted to various players being out, and it's night and day. So
Yeah.
I thought that in itself just showed how far ahead Canada are of the US right now.
Agreed, and I would extend that to Jesse Marsch getting a red card. Because I truly, in that moment, was like, well, we've seen this before. Coach loses his head, is overly emotional by maybe the decision against Mexico, and then the perceived decision on the evening. Now he's lost his cool. Now the whole team's going to lose their cool. U.S. ends up winning 3-1. And Canada score almost immediately after that, or in my mind, almost immediately after that. And it just felt like, oh, they're just going to continue to work for each other and pull in the same direction. And that is the difference that can be made at the international level when your opponent is not doing that. And so, yeah, I think Joe is dead on that even losing Alphonso Davies, it felt like Canada still had the better chances, the better opportunities, the better of the game. It makes me a little bit nervous because I wanted it to be like, well, we're missing 2 fullbacks and 2 starting center backs and the number 9. And so, once we get those guys back, and in reality, we're missing the 2 fullbacks. We're not really sure who our starting number 9 is, but it's probably one of the 2 that's injured. But then after that, there's just a lot of question marks around a lot of positions in this team. I don't feel much better about any of our center back options after this camp. I think there are still some questions about the midfield, plenty of questions about the attack, and still some questions about goalkeeper as well. So in the end, we learned that we need the players who are injured to not be injured, a lesson we might have already known.
That's, solid learning there. Yeah, we'll see how we can push forward
Yeah.
from that. But I suppose that's a question of depth as well, isn't it, Taylor, to be fair?
A little bit. I'll say I'm concerned about the World Cup in 2026, specifically at SoFi Stadium. We already talked about in the first game the dimensions not being big enough, the pitch
It gonna
itself
be
not
bigger.
being big enough.
It gonna be bigger.
It gonna be bigger. It not gonna be that big, but it gonna be bigger. But then, like the Marsch losing his mind at the lack of a penalty. It looks for all the world like it is going to be a penalty. Then it looks like, well, VAR are going to correct this because there must have been contact. And there isn't. Jonathan David just loses his footing. And at first I thought, oh, that's just a dive because he took a heavy touch, which is a thing he did earlier in the game. But this one is just he loses complete traction. And that happened 5 or 6 other times, especially in the first half. Players really struggling to keep their footing, which I'm assuming is a product of the artificial grass and natural grass combination that they're using.
Oh, can I talk about this?
Please.
Hybrid carpet, Taylor. Hybrid carpet. Artificial turf and natural grass, as you say, consisting of multiple layers. It has what's called a permavoid. A permavoid, which is black plastic crates underneath the field, allowing air to move underneath the root structure of the field. A permavoid sounds like something you don't want to be dancing on top of.
I thought that
would
was just
suggest.
Taylor Swift's winning personality.
Permavoid is what I am in constantly as a Scotland fan, particularly after last night. Is that Ryan? It seems like you've done some research on the pitch. Is that better? Is that meant to be better than the Copa America last year, which was obviously a big talking point? And the hope was that obviously that's a CONMEBOL tournament. This is CONCACAF. FIFA, for all their faults, tend to put on a decent playing surface at their tournaments. Is this what they're going to use next year?
I'm not sure about it because I think they're doing some bigger changes, aren't they? Because I think they're going to change the width and even change the seating arrangement, right, in SoFi. But I think this is a step in what they would deem to be a positive direction. They have 10,000 square feet of hybrid grass growing in a parking lot outside SoFi Stadium as well to replace worn sections.
How much
of the field.
to park on that?
I was going to say, yeah, you could camp there. But if they were already replacing worn sections of the field with 10,000 square feet of hybrid grass in the parking lot, don't know how I feel about that. But hey, they're trying something. But I think this leads me to one of the points I wanted to make if I was going to make a conclusion about this window. And it's that, yes, it was a little bit embarrassing on the field, but I was more embarrassed by what was happening off and around the field in this one. 15 months out from a World Cup against your neighbours, Canada, in the country's best stadium, what is ostensibly viewed to be the country's best stadium, there was no effort to make these games accessible and no sort of momentum for them. And, of course, CONCACAF organises this competition. A lot of blame to be put on them for the doubleheader and whatnot. But I still feel that US soccer has a duty to build momentum for this team a year out from a World Cup. And I don't think they've sort of fit that remit at all. Like, why not? I mean, yeah, once again, CONCACAF probably the ones who we should point the finger at, but why not make the tickets $20? Why not get every LA local youth?
Because they can charge Mexico fans $150, and I mean that's what it comes down to, right? They know that Mexico fans are the more fervent of the two. It's disgraceful. They're the more fervent fan base, and they know that they can charge them $150 and justify it by saying you're getting two tickets here. They don't want the second ticket, and what that means is the US game is empty. So I accept what you're saying, Ryan. I don't disagree. It's completely disgraceful, but it's on CONCACAF, right? And in US soccer going forward, they need to apply pressure that this double header situation can't continue. Like, it's a farce. It's a complete farce having kickoffs in these games and barely anyone being in the stadium. So I just don't know if I extend that to the World Cup, right? I just think the World Cup is its own thing and stands alone, and those stadiums I think will be pretty full when that tournament comes along.
Taylor, it's a good thing we have British people on this show to be incensed about ticket prices and things like that, because I'm just so numb to all of those things and to the attendance. Like, I was talking about how I'm running out of juice for G Arena. I have zero left in the tank on attendance, on ticket prices, on any of these things. We need the Brits to be talking about how this is a disgrace, because I just can't carry it anymore.
Social warrior Joe Lowry reporting.
Au contraire, the opposite.
Oh boy. Okay. All right. Let's round it off with our sort of key conclusions from this window. What we learned. Taylor, would you like to kick off proceedings here? Any overarching final thoughts, Jerry Springer style?
No.
Okay. Great.
Awesome. I've got one.
Go on.
Poch isn't a magic fix. This squad has fundamental flaws that he alone cannot address. I guess the hope is that he has a full understanding of the issues he has with this team. But if he'd watched the games from the Copa America a year ago, he would have had the same information. So even that point, I'm a little bit depressed about.
There was a moment in the game, I think it was in the first half, when he is, I found it genuinely intriguing. He is back to the pitch talking to two assistants, and they are talking back. And it's very clearly a, thought experiment conversation about, should we try this, should we try that? And that does genuinely give me at least a little bit of hope that they are, maybe this is just full-on experimentation. Maybe we are seeing what sticks, what doesn't, who can do what, who can handle what's asked of them in the build-up to the World Cup. And maybe he is truly seeing it as this is all a lead-up to the World Cup. I do not care about any of these results if it gets us into the best possible position. But there are a lot of ifs and there are a lot of conditionals in there. But there are little moments in game when he's not making sweeping adjustments, he's not making full tactical changes, and maybe that would be a good thing to see, but there are moments when you can see him still trying to figure this team out and still trying to figure out the best possible look for them. And then I think there are moments like bringing on Yunus Musa to dribble out of bounds that probably make him tear up his notes and maybe want to start all over.
Yeah, to that point, Taylor, about Poch trying to figure things out, the positive is that he is one of the best problem solvers in management, right? So at Spurs fans will tell you his first season at Spurs is pretty rough as he's figuring things out. Obviously things round out, they make a Champions League final. We all watched last season the first half of, or the first 2/3 actually, of Chelsea's season, which was dreadful. They were in the bottom half of the table, but they come good towards the end of the season and finish 6th. So That's the hope, is that this is all part of the process. But man, the stakes are high when you're just hoping that it's all right on the night at a home World Cup.
Graham, to go back to your overarching takeaway about Poch, this game really was the ultimate supporting point for my managers matter way less than we think they do conversation. Mauricio Pochettino has not fixed the U.S. men's national team, and Canada won while their coach was sitting up in row Z in the stands behind 4 walls of glass. Like, this is the ultimate test case and the ultimate supporting point for that entire conversation. My overarching takeaway, Ryan, is that truly Diego Luna's emergence is a really big deal, because as much as I like watching Reyna play soccer, coaches don't. And he's never on the field for anyone. And that's a real problem for the U.S., or at least it has been. It was a real problem for the U.S. against Panama. If Diego Luna can be a guy to carry a huge chunk of that central playmaking burden for the United States, they are better off. And so I'm still down about this window as a whole. I think this U.S. team has really not progressed whatsoever since the 2022 World Cup, and that is disappointing.
I think if anything, they've regressed. Like, if you offered me getting out the group at this point, I think I and maybe a lot of fans would maybe take that.
Oh, like they'll be a pot 1 team. They'll beat up on some teams along the way. I think I'm not so doomy, I guess. But I heard Graham. I'm not so concerned about all this. But I don't think the U.S. team has progressed since 22. But
that's true.
Luna might have them progress. So that's fun. I like that.
There we go. All right. A mildly positive note to end this discussion on. Thank you very much indeed. Listener, if you want to continue this conversation, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is how you get our bonus content, including access to our Discord where all the cool kids are hanging out and talking about the US team and much more. We've also got bonus video content and bonus episodes of this here podcast, including, hey, if you're missing Weekend Review this weekend, maybe a little bit of something on the bonus feed for you coming very shortly. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show, please. And thank you. But for now, Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much indeed, sir.
I don't know what I've just been signed up for, but thank you, Ryan Bailey.
You're about to talk about the weekend, Taylor, whether you like it or not.
It's very cryptic.
Yeah. Graham Ruthven, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Ryan Bailey. Taylor, you mean you don't have notes on the Newcastle women's game against Sunderland women's yesterday in the women's championship?
Oh, that I do. Yeah.
Right. Okay, sure. We're fine then.
Cool.
Yeah, I've got quite a lot on the continent south to go through from the weekend. We'll get to it
Sure
very
you
shortly. Before we do, Joe Lowry, thank you very much, sir.
Thanks, Ryan.
And listener, thank you for joining us here on the feed. We'll be back very shortly, but for now, bye!
It feels like the one of us who had the heart out at 11 was really enjoying that circuitous ending.